What do you want to say?
Well, it's a long story. It's good to have you here, Carol, and the girls. We appreciate the company that you're giving us. Kristin is a little bit difficult sometimes, but she still sits on my lap, and we get along pretty good.
Why is Kristin so difficult?
Well, I kind of tease her a little bit.
So maybe you're the one that's difficult.
Never. I could never be difficult. I mean, I have a good witness to that fact that I could never be difficult. My daughter, Carol, agrees that I could never be difficult. She has made that statement so many times that I know that it's impossible for me to be difficult. Because Carol, she's a third daughter, see. And yesterday I had 3 thirds in the car. Luke and my wife, all third children. And third children are more difficult to get along with than any other kind of a child.
Huh? How did you do that? I know you fell down, but how did you get up there? I want to know how you got there.
By the bars.
Did you see her climb up by herself?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, sister.
Mom, turn around.
Last time, oh my.
Do you want to see me? Do you want to see me?
Do you want to try again? And Grandma help you go down the
There's a
slide?
squeezy and her mom, or grandma.
You want to go down? You still want to go on those monkey bars? Okay, now you tell Grandma when you want me to get you. Did you? Good one.
I'm going down the slide.
You want to go on the slide?
It's not beautiful.
It's not beautiful. Why?
You hit that. And
There's nothing else like it on Earth. Or maybe even
no hit.
What is?
You forgot to turn the light on for me.
Get it? You knock it down. Who's here? I think somebody's here. I think somebody's give her a big kiss, okay? You go give her a big kiss.
America's watching.
Grandpa, it's my birthday.
Do something for me. What did you do?
Yeah.
Draw? Oh, boy, that's good. Oh, nice.
I'm showing you.
You want to show me? I see a heart.
I made the heart. Look it.
What's it
And Mommy.
saying?
And Grandpa.
Happy birthday, Grandpa, Mom. What happened here, huh?
Mom, my
That's
mommy.
Kristin. Oh, I love it. Let's see yours again. Now, who is this? Is that you?
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse?
Now look at the back. Minnie Mouse. Heart.
And Minnie Mouse.
He got that. He got that.
Look at that fire go.
Is that a bad idea? Why? Oh. And it says, happy birthday, Grandma. Love, Ariel. Did you write Ariel? Wonderful. Thank you. Such sweet granddaughters. I'm so lucky.
Ran it with Dad and Uncle GB. House. Robertson. Granny and Pop. Mom and Dad. Robertson. Grandma and Grandpa. Grandpa Stip. Grandma Stip. Family room. Fireplace. children. Laundry room. There's the bathroom.
Fight for Britain, so they went to the war. When the war was over, he was still thinking about my grandmother too, and so they decided that they were going to come to California, but they weren't sure. And then some guy named Anderson came back who had land in California himself, and so I told him about that was in California. So Granddad figured, yeah, he'd buy the land, but he wanted somebody to see it. So my dad, his grandfather, or great-grandfather, and my uncle, Don, my uncle Stuart, and a friend of theirs, a guy that they grew up with, what's his name, Parker Weir. They said, we'll go, because they just got out of the service, they'd saved up their money, you know, so they came to California.
In a boat?
No, well, they took a steamer over there. Yeah, they came with the boat. They couldn't fly. Anyway, they came to California in 1921, and they went on to California. California land wasn't it? They spent the first holiday. They got there the 3rd of July and spent the 4th of July in Untitled. They liked the people treated them right. They liked the land, so they wrote back and told them, "Oh, this is a great place."
And they stayed there? Did they go back?
They stayed there. And they built a house in that. And Granddad came back and he got the word. Granddad, Aunt Nell, Aunt Isa, I think that they all came. And there were some friends. They came. Some of the Wilsons came. Several Wilsons came to California, and they started building more working on the house. Pop got a job there doing something. He was working around Utah, and he was picking up money some singing. He went to the Presbyterian church there. And he stand to the Presbyterian church, and the other churches started bidding for him. And you say, well, they say they'll pay me so much, and they say, well, I'll pay you this much. Okay, so he told me to pay me.
Churches paid him?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, that used to be one of the things that used to drive people to do. They asked me at Sunday school, and we used to go to Presbyterian church every day once. And the Sunday school teacher, where's your dad go to church? To the one that pays them the most. And they about had it too. And he sang for that Presbyterian church a couple of times, but he wouldn't sing for the guy. The guy wanted a kickback.
He wanted a what?
Wanted a kickback. The church paid the singers so much, and he wanted 10%. The pastor. They ended up, that pastor was fired for embezzlement later on.
And what was the pastor's name?
Crichton.
Well, just kidding. Don't say it.
Yeah, his name was Crichton. I
edit that part out.
First name was. I think
that was a long
John,
time
but
ago.
I'm
He's
not
dead.
sure. Oh yeah, that was way back then. But no, he was something else, and he was getting kickbacks from all over the place, and embezzled quite a bit of money there. But we ran into quite a few not too honest pastors and dealers. We got one guy was a singer. He had 2 wives. Nobody knew it. Had 4 kids, 2 by each wife. One lived out on 43rd Avenue, and the other one lived down there on
In the same city?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the guy worked for, and it went downtown. And this guy had wives on both ends of the
D-line.
Yeah. They called him the Ding Dong Daddy. They finally caught up. But no, some of the stunts that happened, I mean, they were really wild. I don't think California. And, well, going through Pennsylvania and New York State, that was but when they hit out here in Indiana, at Chicago, and the Flat, and then they got to Salt Lake City, and the Flat. Oh,
So you say they came by train?
yeah. took him 7 days, 7 or 8 days.
Did he write a journal?
He was coming across there, it would get flattened. He would get homesick real quick because he saw this mountain. Scotland is a lot of hills. Well, when he got to California, when he finally hit the Sierras, he thought he got a relief when he hit the Rockies, but as soon as he got through the Rockies, there's this more flat city. So when he got to California, and then he looked at the Sierras, then things started like, whoa, this isn't so bad. Then they went through the valley, and well, you know, he's getting down to the coast. He knew he was getting close to the coast. And he got to San Francisco, and he loved San Francisco right off the bat because it reminded him of Glasgow. Glasgow's about real similar.
Did he live in Glasgow?
No, his mother.
Now, how far away from Glasgow's mother was?
About 2 miles. Just like living in Delphi. And, no, then, what was it? They were kind of in a hurry, so they went to the ferry across Sausalito, and the train up to and they got in San Francisco, I think July 1st, and stayed at Palace Hotel. So I think Palace Hotel, because they stayed in the Palace Hotel too, because that was supposed to be the big deal. And there was another hotel up there, but I forget the name, it was torn down. But anyway, they and then they had the 4th of July. And Uncle Don thought they would be kind of separated when they got there. So they were asked if they wanted to enter any events, and they were asked what some of the events were, you know, because the boxing was one of them. So Don, he signs up for them. They end up being both of them fight each other.
This is a
They did, so.
What happened?
They were surprised, you know. Everybody, you know, they
Doug has
started
got,
betting, and it was, hey, that's my
brought his
brother.
tape from Ariel. You wanna come over and see it?
Oh, this son
Some
sound
evening,
right.
you and Doug, maybe?
Well, they each won their deal, so.
maybe when the boys are
They just put on a spot. So they used to
busy
box
with
all the
soccer or
time.
They
something.
boxed each other? Or
Yeah.
not?
Oh, yeah.
Did?
Oh, yeah. No,
Who won?
they called it a draw. They didn't run.
Oh, did they get any winnings?
No, there was, I forget some kind of prize, but it wasn't. But it was just the principle. And then they ran races, and they did pretty good. And then it was at Halloween season, like that. Halloween party.
He met her at a
Oh,
Halloween
have
party?
you seen that?
So they came in July, and then he met her right after that
In
October.
Halloween, yeah. Well, they knew that there was a Scotch bunch up on top of the hill. And they were up there. Well, one of the things that they were trying to do...
Scotch bunch. Picture them with their plaids on.
Well, no.
You know, Scotch.
But that was...
It's called a colony, a Scotch colony.
Yeah, Scotch, the Bonnie Bray. That's what they called it. And well, Granddad, that's the first thing he did when he got there. He named it that. And then they were having trouble finding water because they wanted to build a house up on a kind of a knoll. And then down in the valley, they figured that's where the water was. Granddad got there, and they were having trouble getting water. Wilson got water around his place about half a mile away without too much hang-up. But they had trouble getting water. So Granddad got a water witch, and the water witch tells him, he says, you dig up on top of the hill. He says, about 20 feet from the house. He says, and you'll get water. And Granddad, well, up on top of the hill doesn't make sound right. But he said so, and he knows what he's doing, so he dug. He dug the well himself, down about 10 feet. And it was easy, the best place to have
I don't know
water
about
was
those
right
water
near the
witches.
house. And
Well, maybe the guy really has a lot of knowledge about where water would be.
Well, don't
well,
they work those little...
those water witches, they
There's
seem to
something
work.
wrong
So-
with using water witches.
You don't think?
I
You
know.
think they work?
The little rods?
Yeah.
I think there must be some kind of...
There's
magnetic
something.
They used to have a
I don't know.
stick, like a
Like,
slingshot,
It was a
only
water,
big, and
yeah.
hanging onto
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah,
A
And-
divining rod.
yeah, divine.
Yeah.
Something like that, but no.
I don't know. I think I read someplace.
For Moses, they'd work, but
Well, anyway, he dug it himself. I mean, he had the deal. He had a bucket down, he kept going down, and he had a trip that would trip it off. And Grandma would take and she'd run some out. And anyway, then he didn't want to plant grapes. And everybody's trying to tell him, well, that's the money is in the grape. 'Cause one of the reasons he came here, too, prohibition's in the United States. They don't drink in the United States. You know? Oh, that turned Granddad on.
He liked that?
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't a drinker.
Oh, I thought the Scots drank a lot.
Well, some do, but not all. Oh, man, he was a Presbyterian, well, Congregationalist Presbyterian. I mean, no drinking at all. He was 87 years old before he had his first drink.
Why did he have one?
Because
his
sons were trying to get him to take a drink, and one time he had a cold, and he'd taken cough medicine, and it wouldn't work, and he still had the cold. So Uncle Don, Uncle John, and Pop, here, we got just the medicine for you. He didn't know it was whiskey. When they poured him a shot, he says, you take this right down, he says, that'll knock that cold out for you. So he drank it. Oh, that wasn't so bad. It got rid of the cold. He says, we ought to have something. He says, where'd you get that medicine? And he about died when he found out it was whiskey. Got good Scotch whiskey.
I can't believe he was that innocent.
Well, he wouldn't try it, see. That was one of the things, and he often mentioned that. He says, he says, a little whiskey now and then. Which is true.
Yeah.
Too much anything will kill you. But no, that was a big deal. That was one of the reasons he was against the Mason Club so fierce, because it stopped. Everybody went down there to drink. They used to get
And then his dad, then he knew Pop was a Mason.
Yeah, well, the only reason Pop became a Mason is because he needed the work money.
It's a good
point, but then he liked it.
Yeah, he liked it, but you can't sing in a Masonic lodge unless you're a Mason. And they paid good, and they paid. See, a lot of churches don't pay all the time. They keep hemming and hawing is when they're going to pay you. And the only churches that he had that was consistently, was Congregational Church was good in Oakland. And the synagogue was good in San Francisco, or the other synagogue. They paid right on time. They tell you they had a system, 7 days, and they paid, which was, that's normal. That's a good deal. But so many of them, they just didn't.
National Right to Life for you, Mom.
On the phone?
Yeah.
But anyway, then Mom went around, and Mom's granddad didn't care for Mom getting married. She didn't want too wild. Because Grandma was taking care of the house and feeding that. She was bugging into town to get stuff, and when they got a car, she'd go in the car. Her brothers didn't get to drive because Grandpa, he wanted them out in the field working, didn't want to waste their time driving into town. And he says, well, we're going to handle this heavy stuff. And he says, no, he says, Elsie can go into town, no problem. They'll load it in town, and when she gets back, you'll unload it when it gets back. She's not going to handle anything. Other maybe the grocery stuff. That used to drive them nuts. That's why most of my uncles, they all left town, left the ranch as quick as they could to work someplace else. But Granddad, he was a worker. And he worked his kids, you wouldn't believe.
So how did Granny and Pop meet at the
Halloween
party?
Yeah.
They just set up a Halloween party?
It was a Halloween party. Pop was dressed up. What is it? He was dressed up like a woman, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got a picture of him.
You have a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And Mom wasn't too happy about it, but that got...
That's how she met him, though?
Basically, yeah. That was how...
Wait, your mom wasn't too happy about
No.
that?
What was she dressed as?
I don't remember.
You have a picture, Pop, where? I have to see that.
Well,
He's got a
never
hat and
heard
a dress
this story.
on. He's got a hat on.
You're kidding. I've never heard this story.
I'll see if I can find
My
it.
old great-grandfather.
Anyway, they started kind of going. Well, Pop used to.
Boy, I don't know where that
He'd
I've
drive
seen
down
it recently,
from,
but I've been looking at so many
Bonnie Bray
pictures,
up
I'm
in
not
out of
sure.
Calpella.
It's just a snapshot.
It was.
Pam was saying that she was finding
It was 9 miles from Bonnie Bray. It was about 2 miles down to, or 2 or 3 miles from the
Yeah, all
down
summer
to
long,
Calpella.
Pam was going to come over and we were going to do pictures together.
The ranch where his mom was.
We ended up going through a
And
bunch of
they got a
stuff.
car, and he rode the car.
And we never
with it.
did
He
get the
walked that
pictures, so I
distance.
went through the pictures after she
Several.
left. So
And
that's what I saved for
Granddad,
you. But since
Mom's
they're all
dad
up in the attic,
started
you
to
know,
develop
Dad put all that other
that, and then,
stuff up in the attic, and I said, you leave the pictures there.
Pop mentioned something
Of course, if you want to see the other stuff,
growing grapes. What's money?
On the Bonnie Road.
On Bonnie Bray, that's where
Bray?
Bray, B-R-A-E. So that they
Brays or Bonnie?
yeah.
Where the morning dew.
So what was it? Pop mentioned it to Mom's dad, that he was thinking of grapes. So he told him they got together. So both my granddads got together, and Granddad still. He says, I got a lot of trimmings, but I have a grapes. He says, and you can use those to grow your grapes up there. And he helped him with the truck, and he got a bunch of grapes. Worked out pretty good. Then Mom came to the city. She wanted to get away. I was supposed to take 2 pills every 4 hours for he figured, because he didn't know what he was doing anyway. He told me that. He says, I don't know what that thing is. He says, but the sulfa pill seemed to work for most things.
With your ankles?
Yeah, but sulfa pill is hard on your stomach. So that's why you want to take plenty of, water. So I asked him, I said, well, how about going on Liberty? He says, well, you can go on Liberty if you want. I'm hobbling around there. I mean, I could walk if it wasn't that easy, but what the heck, I want to get off the ship. And he says, go drop in at one of the meds there, one of the docks on one of the Army bases. He says, they'll give you the water. He says, get the pill. So I'm on Liberty. And my 4 hours were there, and I figured I was going to go back to the ship, but I had about 8 hours. I could have on the beach early. And I thought, no, I said, I'll stop at this Army station. So I stopped at the Army station. And I tell him, I says, the doc got a note from the doc. The doc says I'm supposed to take sulfa pills every 4 hours, but he wouldn't give me anything off the ship because he wasn't sure whether I drink enough water, so he wants me to take 2 glasses of water with each pill. And the guy looks at me, the pharmacist makes me, the doctor looks at me, and the pharmacist may too. He says, your doc's nuts. He says, you don't need 2 glasses of water with each pill. And I said, oh, yeah? He says, all you need is 1 cup. Well, you know what the cup was? You know in those little canteens?
Yeah.
They have the cup comes off the side there. It holds about a pint of water. And that water was right out of a Lister bag. And I mean, it tastes horrible. And that pharmacist they wouldn't let me out of that med station until I drank the whole thing. And that was hard to do. But no, that doctor was good.
You want to do me a favor?
What's that?
Tell me the story of of building of the bridge. Everything you know about the
Golden Gate Bridge?
Golden Gate Bridge. What year and what do you remember about it?
Oh, well. Yeah. They've been arguing about it for a long time where they're going to build the bridge. And they started in, I think it was 1934.
How old were you then?
I was about 11 years old. No, I was 9 years old when they started, I guess. 1934, I was 9. And when they first started, I mean, it took them about a year before you could even see anything. And then they started seeing the pattern.
They started under the ocean first?
Yeah. And they got the North Tower. They got that real quick. That bridge, I mean, they never had any fatalities on that bridge until the bridge was almost finished.
Is that right? Nobody died on it?
And then until it was almost finished. The Bay Bridge started about the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the Bay Bridge was, somebody's getting killed 1 or 2 every month.
Really?
Oh, they get on these ropes to go down, and they slide down a rope, and their hands burn. And they let go, and into the drink they go into the cement on the bottom. But the Golden Gate Bridge, they didn't do that. And they went along, and, well, we had to draw it from, I tell you about the school. That was our teacher's assignment, draw the bridge. Every day for a while, and then every week, because you could see,
Progress being made.
The progress, and we weren't too happy about it. I mean, it was like, oh, for crying out loud, what you got to do that for? You didn't realize we had no idea that it was that big a deal. And we didn't mind going out, and getting so deal that people used to get lost in it. those towers, if they get in there and somebody get lost.
What do you mean lost?
Well, they couldn't find their way out. They walked in the towers, go up, and they were, I don't know, they got disorientated somehow and they get lost.
No kidding. When it's dark, you mean pitch
Yeah.
black?
And they had these crossways too. And the, what you call it, well, some people said the bridge sang, they with the wind. It was because, see, that's a rubber bridge. You can, if you want, you go to the Legion of Honor in San Francisco, and there's a statue there of Joan of Arc. And you take that statue and you line it up with Mount Tamalpais and the bridge on a windy day, and you can see the bridge.
Moving, huh?
Yeah. And it's built to go, I think, at least 6 feet each direction. And when they built bridges, they always had trouble, like the one up in Tacoma blew down. Well, this one, Golden Gate Bridge, didn't have any problem. They never have had a problem with the Golden Gate Bridge, but it's hard to ride a motorcycle across it.
Oh, really?
And they'll close it down. Oh man, yeah. You ride a bike line, you're leaning like this, leaning into the wind, you know. And when
Sideways.
yeah, and when they had that bridge built, one of the things, the in thing to do is riding a motorcycle and lighting a cigarette by going across the Golden Gate Bridge. And that and I could do that because you got to cup it just right till the dang thing will go out. Because you're only doing about 40 miles an hour, but still you're going across the bridge.
So which one did they finish first, the Bay or the Golden Gate?
They finished the Golden Gate first.
The Bay longer?
Huh?
The Bay longer?
Yeah, but the Bay Bridge, well, they had the opening day. We were on the opening day, and then Bob and I walked across it on the opening day right on the day, not where the darn thing was waiting. And the Golden Gate, the Bay Bridge, though, when they opened it, they didn't have to walk across too far, 7 miles across.
Oh.
I mean, for the whole thing. And
What's the Golden Gate?
mile.
Just a mile.
Yeah. I think it's not, the span is not quite a mile, but when you walk across it, usually you go through the whole end.
Yeah.
From one side to the other. Yeah.
What year did they open it?
Huh?
What year did they open it?
37.
It took 3 years to build it.
Yeah.
37.
And it was a wonder and all that. Although, you know, we walked across the Mackinac Bridge there in Michigan. But you can't walk, on Labor Day, they allow you to walk across the Mackinac Bridge. And Lou and I were up there on Labor Day. Now, we didn't know that was the only day of the year, but then we found out we stayed there, we couldn't walk it, because it's a little bit longer than.
Well, what's so, if the Bay Bridge is longer, what's so special about the Golden Gate?
The tides.
It's hard to build because of the tides.
Yeah, the tides and finding a base. I mean, they went down, they found mammoth elephants and saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that. Well, they were going down, and that North Tower went right up. They got to the rock base on Marin County side real quick. But there was a shelf there, and they couldn't get it down. They keep going down, and it wasn't solid rock.
Huh.
And that's where the big hang up there. And then the big deal, too, was getting the cables to go across. It's like a spinning wheel. And they had this thing going, that must have gone for 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, really? Spinning the cables?
Yeah.
How many miles of cables were there?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Why?
They had some kind of a deal. They had a cable that was about the size of a pencil.
Oh, really?
And they'd take and they'd run it across. And then they'd get a bunch of them together. And then they'd wrap them real tight. And then they'd have others, and they keep going. And then now the thing is about, geez, must be almost 3 feet diameter cables.
Wow.
when they're finished. But there's a lot of little tables.
So they started with one that was a pencil
Yeah.
size, and they'd run that one across first. And
Yeah.
then run
Well,
the, others
the
and
first
wrap
the
'em.
first one they run across. Let's see how they do that. They had a tug or something, I think it was, and they ran it across. The guy took it across. They closed the harbor there so we couldn't go in until they got the things up. And then once they got that first one up, then they got their spin wheel going back and forth. And that was just constant. And no, and then when they did lose them, I think it was 26, 28 something. Guys got lost their life on it. It was all their own fault.
You mean when they first started losing them, they started losing
Well,
them?
no, they lost them all at once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they didn't lose them day in, day out. They just lost them all at once. They had this safety net underneath while they were working in the different sections. And this safety net, the guys would use it, well, hey man, go to lunch. I'm in a hurry to go to lunch. It's lunchtime. I don't want to waste my time climbing down the ladders and going to lunch. So they jump into the safety net and then walk through that. That saved a good 5 minutes. It's like everything else, hurry up and that. And they all, there was a bunch of them were in the safety net, and all of a sudden it gave way. And down it went. Well, once they gave way and it went down, they could use a fishing net. Because this was a heavy rope, I think, in some steel. Yeah. And it was made to save lives and not for shortcuts, but they took advantage of that and jumped in it. I guess they did it too many times, and then it all went down. And once it got down in that water, they could have, they didn't stand a chance. But that's, and that the Golden Gate Bridge is one of the standards for Navy ships. You can't make a ship that can't go under the Golden Gate Bridge. And theoretically, it was supposed to be at high tide, but when the Enterprise went under it, they go under it at low tide. And then when they go under that old mast, they take off part of the mast that they got on there because it's collapsible. And it goes under, and you swear that thing's going to hit. But they claim it misses it by about 6 feet. But Doug took us on we got one of his buddies, they had a family day, he could take somebody on. So I went down there, and Doug got me on there. And I'm up on the bridge there because I was a signalman, and I'm shooting the breeze. I still can signal. And we started that, and I was looking at that deal, and man, because we went out in the morning, and the tide was low, and zoom, and when you come up to it, and all of a sudden, right through it. Looks like it's slow motion to start with, but you get under it, and just barely miss it. Then we went out, and they shot the plane and stuff. And then when we came back, it was the same thing. It went from low to high, and then back to low again. No, that Golden Gate, well, most people like Lou, when she first saw it, she wanted it to be gold.
Yeah.
Because people forget the Golden Gate is not anything to do with gold color. It's the gate to the gold fields is what it was all about. And that's where the people, the 49ers and that, they all came.
Yeah, well, I identified it with the bridge.
Yeah, and well, it's the Golden Gate. It's the gate to the gold way. It's gold, and the bridge is crossing it.
So you grew up in San Francisco, right? And what years were you there?
When I was born, 1925, till 42, when I went in the Navy, and then when I got back in 46.
So you said you knew DiMaggio?
Yeah.
You played with his brother?
Well, Joe used to come down to Funston.
To where?
Funston Playground. And him and his brothers would come down there, and they want us to shag flies for them, which was all right, because they said we're going to have a game. But then he'd go home, and we got mad at him. Hey, we want to play baseball, I mean, we knew he was a good ball player, but we figured, like his brother, Tom, they'd have a game. Him and, what's his name, Daryl and Johnny, they'd pick sides. And the only stipulation they had, they each pitched for the other side. You know, I mean, no big deal. But no, Joe. Well, of course, he was awful bashful. He was shy.
So now, who did you play for then?
Seals, San Francisco Seals.
That was a farm team, or was that a major?
No. That was a minor league team. It was owned by Charlie Graham. That's before they had the farm system. The farm system really didn't start until after that, when St. Louis was the one that had the farm system.
So they had a minor league and then a major league?
Yeah, it was a minor league, and all the Coast League teams were privately owned by different interests. Then, what is it? St. Louis Cardinals bought Sacramento and made a farm out of Sacramento. Yeah? And what's his name? Joe, actually it's kind of funny in a way, because Joe, he played 3 years for the Seals. And the third year, he was sold to the Yankees. And then they weren't going to buy him because he hurt his, I think it was his foot. Yeah, he had a heel problem, spur on his heel. And basically his price went down to himself. And he batted, this always got a kick out, he batted .398 in the Coast League. But he didn't win the championship. Oscar Eckhart from the Missions batted .399. Oscar was a single hitter, but Joe could hit it out of the park regular. Although Oscar got a home run that was longer than Joe ever thought of getting. He had a line drive. Oscar Eckhart had a line drive over the center field bleachers, or center field stand, which had a scoreboard on top of it. I mean, it was a monstrous drive, and that was 424 to that center field, plus the height of the scoreboard. I mean, it was out of sight. But Joe then, the Yankees settled. I think they settled on, they paid $25,000. And that basically saved the Seals, because the Seals were going bankrupt. I mean, they couldn't use payroll. And all of it was depression time.
That was a great deal for the Yankees.
Oh, yeah. And, well, the Yankees took a chance, Steve, too. But the Yankees have got some pretty good ball players out of San Francisco. They got, Lefty Gomez and Joe Cronin came out of there.
Now, what year was that he went to the...
36 is when he first played for the Yankees.
No, that wasn't
35.
That famous Yankee team, was it? Was that the famous...
Oh, well, that was that 4 years, 36, 37, 38, 39. The Yankees won won the pennant in 36 and 37. They won the World Series against the Giants. I think that was 4-2 World Series. Carl Hubbard beat them once. And then when they played in 38, they played the Cubs. They swept the Cubs, and then 39, they swept the Reds, Cincinnati.
So that was a famous Yankee team.
Yeah, yeah.
Who else was on that team?
Oh, well, Lou Gehrig was on it to start with before he got that disease. And second base was Tony Lazzari, Push-Em-Up Tony, who he's the one that, what's his name, over Cleveland, Alexander struck out. And the shortstop was Crissetti. Crissetti probably got more World Series paychecks than any other player, because he got him as a player and he got him as a coach. And third base was Wolf. I think it was Wolf. I'm not sure. And then they had, Joe played center field, Selkert played left, and what the heck, Keller, King Kong Keller was a right fielder. There was somebody else that played left too, because they didn't keep the same team each year. And Bill Dickey was the catcher. And then their pitchers, they had that Allie Reynolds and Gomez. And Gomez, I think he won. For a while, he won 6 straight World Series games. We call him Goofy Gomez. He was kind of a goofball in a way, but he could sure pitch.
But what is some of the greatest things you remember about San Francisco growing up?
What? It was a playground.
Really?
It started out, well, when I was young and in my prime, we used to play baseball in the back of the backyard we had on Green Street. And I remember I hit the ball over the fence. Best hit I ever hit with the ball. And went through the neighbor's window, busted the window. And what's his name? Francis, or Bud, we call him. Bud Curry. He was watching the football game. And what's happening and all that? Well, it ended up, well, my dad said, we'll pay for it. And I had to work to get it paid for, but we got it. But Bud Curry, he's the one that took me first to football. He was going to USF. And he asked me one time, would you like to go to a football game? Oh, man, yeah. They played St. Mary's of San Antonio, Texas. And that San Antonio team had a lineman that weighed 340 pounds, something. He was a monster. But he didn't start. That was the funny part. He didn't start because he was too slow. But anyway, that was the first day. And then Bud got me started with, how do you get around San Francisco keeping up? You hop on the back of streetcars. And I don't think my mom and dad knew. He said, well, it's not the best way, but he says it's safe. He says, I'll watch you. But make sure you hang on tight. And they have these cow catchers that come up. So you get on the back of that. Well, sometimes the conductors, if they see you there, they'd run you off. And then you just wait for the next streetcar. But instead of spending a nickel for the fare, see, that saves money. But this particular time, we got it right out down to Van Ness on the H car, and then from Van Ness we got the N car and hopped on the back of it because everybody was getting on the car to go to the game. So the conductor, he was swamped, and then he couldn't keep track of everybody. So we got, and Bud, he had me sit between the cow catcher and the cab in the back so that I wouldn't fall out. He was hanging on the other side. And we come to get to the Kezar, then you had to go through the tunnel. And the tunnel was about, I guess, a mile long. It's part of Twin Peaks.
So that tunnel would go under what?
Under the mountain in San Francisco, Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Where the radio tower is now and everything?
That's Mount, no, that's right. That's Mount Davidson. When the Den car went under Mount Davidson, the L&M went under Twin Peaks. Yeah, that's partly where the tower is, but...
And the stadium was on the other side of that?
Yeah, it was Golden Gate Park, right where Golden Gate Park.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, it was right off the panhandle of Golden Gate Park. Yeah. So you hang on going through the tunnel. Well, there were 2 stops in the tunnel, but when they had the football season, usually they were full. They couldn't stop for anybody. Just sailing all through. And it's kind of scary in a way. I think I was, I guess about 8 or 9 years old, something like that. And got through there, and then Bud took me to several, and I get to sit with him, see, in the USF rooting section.
Oh, yeah.
And that was good. He took me to several games.
USF?
University of San Francisco. And, no, that was a deal. And Bud, he ended up being the medical doctor for San Francisco. He was the #1 surgeon.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was his sister, she became a nun. When we first moved there, we moved from Scott Street when I was 4 years old, my 4th birthday. And the Currys lived next door to us. And Donna was the one, she wasn't the one that was a nun. I forget the one that was a nun. But she's the one that was a nun, turned out to be a nun later on. She greeted us and brought us over. So we had a vacant lot between our house and their house. And that vacant lot was owned by Curry's uncle. And he wouldn't sell it to anybody. In fact, it was long after World War II before he finally sold it.
Now, where did you guys live?
We lived on Green Street.
Was it like one of those houses you see on San Francisco that...
No, it was a cottage. It was a cottage, which was very rare. It had lots of termites in it. But it was a cottage. It would be similar to this house, not as big. But similar to this house, had a backyard, a small backyard. And we used to play in there.
But was it on the side of the hill, or was it?
Yeah, it was on a hill.
On the hill. Everything was on the side of the hill.
Well, almost everything. We got so, like, I wouldn't live on anything without it. Then you wanted to live on the hill because the cars your battery gets dead, you have a kick start with the hill.
Heavy hill start.
And I mean, you didn't have to push very far to get it to the
Now,
hill.
did you ride bicycles ever around
Oh
San
man,
Francisco?
yes.
Really?
Yeah, we used to bicycle all over. Go out to.
How would you get up those hills?
Well, most of the time, if you didn't walk, you grab a hold of the streetcar and have to pull you up the hill, or a truck. I mean, it was not the nicest thing to do. I mean, it was, you got around how you could. If you couldn't find it, the conductor, he'd holler at you, and the cops would get after you. But they'd give you a swat in the butt and tell you, hey, what are you doing, and that type of thing. But you can ride a bicycle all over San Francisco and not hit too many steep hills. You can go around them. When Lou's mother came out there, and I San Francisco first time, I was taking out over San Francisco to go these hills. We get up on the top of Knob Hill and start going down, and she was a little leery. And then we go to the Street of Tevin Turns, and man, I mean, that, and then she asked me, she says, could you please not go on these hills? She says, I don't have to see San Francisco, all of it. I said, these hills, she was nervous. So I told her, oh, okay. So I said, we'll go up the top of them. We won't go up any steep hills, If you see a hill too steep, because I'll just go around. It takes longer. You got to wind around, but you can get up to the top of all those places without going up any steep hills.
Oh, so you can just kind of take it around.
Yeah. Well, see, that Street of Seven Turns is like when San Francisco first existed. They had the ships would come in and they'd unload to lighters and bring them in, and then they filled in the land. And the horses were the dray. I mean, they would run. Well, those horses couldn't go up those hills, so they made these switchbacks. That's why you got your 7-turn hill, and the horses go up and back and forth. Then later on, they got the cable cars, because the cable car, take the horse up one of those hills, you can't do it. And so then they had the cable. That's why the cable cars were there. And they took out all the 7-turn hills, except that one.
So all the hills, most of these hills were 7 turns, so you could go.
Yeah.
You could switch back.
It's all switchbacks. They were. Some of them were more than 7, some were less, depending on how steep the hill was.
Right.
But that was the only way to really get up. Otherwise, you have to go way around.
Yeah.
I mean, and the Embarcadero, you can go around a lot of them. And it's like truck drivers will bring their truck. Out-of-state truck drivers don't drive in San Francisco, regardless. They come in and they get a union driver from San Francisco to drive, because those guys, they start up these hills and they don't realize the problems you can run into. And
Shift your gears or something.
Well, they had that moving van killed a bunch of Chinamen. The guy's going up the top of Knob Hill, and he's going to start down that other hill, and boy, his brakes went out. He went all the way down to the bay, wiping out stores and people and everything else. And boy, that's settled it, because no union driver would ever even attempt to go down that hill. He'd go around, because you can get to any place in San Francisco you can get to without going up any really drastic hills. But in many ways, the short deal is to go up the hills.
The safe ways.
Yeah. Well, when you got a big truck, or you've got something that doesn't have that much power, you don't go up those steep hills. But
how much tape we got left? Does it say?
86 minutes.
That sounds like something. But no, anyway.
It doesn't say tape, but that's how many batteries.
Bud got me started on going to football games out in Keysar. Old Harry Larson, his mother and father used to go to the baseball games down in Funston. And Harry was
down where?
Down in Funston. That's where DeMaggio was played. But he
where was that located, Funston?
That's right off of Marina Greens. It's just down near the bay. Lombard Street, well, 1 block up from it. It was what they call that hollow. Cow Hollow is what it was called at that time. The Spanish used to have pasture cows and stuff out there. That's where the World's Fair was right off of there, the 1915 fair.
You mean where they had those pretty where that museum is?
No, the Palace of Fine Arts.
Yeah.
No, not the Palace. The what the heck's that? Man, I can't. What that's? Oh, jeez. It's the only remnants of the World's Fair. It's a dome that they used to play out there a lot.
And there's a little pond around it, or a lake
yeah,
around
they
it.
have swans. And
Yeah,
that,
right. That's near the entrance to the bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, right by the bridge.
Right.
That's the last. It was built temporarily, and it went to pot, but then somebody revised it, so they fixed it up now.
So that's where the ballpark used to be.
Well, no, it was
back
even
toward the
closer,
city.
From there.
Yeah.
And right down the bottom of the Fillmore Hills was right off the side. And anyway, they used to play baseball down there every Sunday. They'd have 4 games. And Larson's, Harry was our kid that we both played. He was an only child. He lived 2 houses away from us. And we used to play a lot. Well, he'd come over our house and we'd go over his house. And then on Sunday sometimes, like, they want to go down to the ball games. And they want to drag Harry with them, and Harry didn't want to go. So then we'd go down because you could play. They had bushes that you could climb around on, and they had a playground and everything else.
So how big of a city was San Francisco then?
About the same as it is today.
Really?
About 600,000. It's San Francisco's population has been pretty stable for the last 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. In 1930, I think it had about 500,000, and then it got up to 6 and 700,000. It's never been over 750,000.
Well, did it feel like a small place to you, like a small town, like you knew everybody, or?
Yeah, well, there's districts. You got districts all over the place. Like we lived in Polk Gulch, Polk Street district, and then there was the Marina district, and there's North Beach district, and then there's the Richmond district, the Sunset district, West Portal. All districts. Each district was a complete unit in itself. You didn't have to leave. You could. That's because transportation. People didn't have cars like that to do all their shopping. Big deals to go downtown. I mean, we used to go downtown for Christmas. They have the stores would all be decorated up and stuff like that. And but if you needed anything, any groceries, clothes, whatever that was in the district, it was all right there. Usually, where you live, you never have to walk more than 4 or 5 blocks. And most of the stuff you could only walk a block or 2 and you got it.
Well, were the districts kind of dominated by one ethnic group, or was it pretty mixed?
Well, some were. The North Beach district was mostly Italians, and the Castro district was mostly Scotch and Irish. And then they had
That's where you guys were?
No, we didn't Pop did not like to live in a district that was one ethnic group.
Oh.
He liked variation. Pop liked to eat food. And he liked food from all different, like that's what he liked San Francisco for. He can eat any kind of food he wants. You feel like eating Italian, fine, we'll go down this Betty's joint in the shack or the spaghetti feed, and you want, whatever you want, German food, Scotch food, it's all Chinese, whatever you felt like. I mean, that was the deal. And we never really, the Polk Street district where we lived was pretty mixed. It had quite a few different groups, and then they had like Pacific Heights. That was a rich people. That was just up there. I used to deliver papers up there and stuff like that.
So you delivered papers all over in your district area, of course.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We were just down below, up from Union Street, and Pacific Heights district was right up from there. I delivered papers there, and then I delivered down in the Marina district too.
Oh, you did?
I did afternoon papers in the Marina district, and then
how big was your route?
The paper route in the Marina was only 2 square blocks, about 40, 50 papers. But the one up on Pacific Heights, that was a good one for me because I started that one out, and I had about 70 papers. And then they started building these apartment houses. And boy, I run it up to 145. I was making $45 a month on that sucker, which was real good money for a. And it only took me an hour from the time I got out of
apartment
bed.
buildings. That's
Yeah,
right.
well, those apartment buildings were not. You know, I don't want you damn kids to buy an apartment house, and so you tell the man, well, you've got people who want the paper. He says, leave me the paper. So you got 20 customers in there, you know, you marked them down. Some of them you didn't have to mark. The guy knew who the customer was. You just stack them 20 papers. You come to the end of the month, you go and get the bill. You go to the manager, you give them the bill for everybody. So you didn't have to really mess around, you know. That was
that's nice.
A real good deal. But yeah, my brother had one right next door to me. He delivered what was the one that was a pain in the neck. I think it was that cracker building, because they had a bunch of different people, a lot of doctors. They had Stanford Hospital was right near there, and it was a training center for doctors, and there were a lot of doctors, and they lived in a big rooming house, you know, maybe you'd have, it'd be an old mansion, and a lot of people would live in together, and they delivered papers to them was for the birds, because nobody had any money, so one guy usually order the paper, and you're going to collect from that one guy. You put his name on it, but everybody else grabs the paper. Then when you go look for the guy that's going to pay for it, you can't find him half the time. So then you stop the paper. Then they complain. I mean, it was kind of a rat race, but it all worked.
What was
out.
the name of the paper?
Chronicle.
Chronicle.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, Paul Bolton's the one I delivered.
So San Francisco had one paper, two papers. Four.
Yeah, they had the Paul, the San Francisco News, the Chronicle, and the Examiner. And the Chronicle and Examiner were the morning papers, and the Paul and the News were the afternoon papers. And the Paul Bulletin and the Examiner were first papers. The News was the Script Howard paper, and I forget, Rockwell or some independent paper. Then they had what they called the shopping paper. It was a throwaway twice a week. And you got paid flat fee on that. Delivered that to every house.
Well, tell me another story. I know you got a story about Alcatraz. You used to go have a friend that worked out there or something?
Well, Alcatraz, yeah. Well, Alcatraz, the closest grammar school to Alcatraz was Sharin School. That's where I went to school. And so the guards' kids would come off of Alcatraz. And
on the ferry?
Yeah, well, a boat. They had two boats. They had a big boat. And it was exclusively for Alcatraz. There was nothing else. And the big boat brought in big supplies, and the little boat, and they had a water boat, and all sorts of deals on that. And the kids would go to school. They'd come in, they'd catch the H car down the bottom of the hill, and ride up to school, and they'd go. But one of their problems was that if they want to get home at night, of course they go right after school. There was a boat, but the last boat was at 9:30 at night. So the next boat was at 6 in the morning, and they couldn't go to night shows, ball games at night because didn't miss the boat. So they'd spend the time in San Francisco. It's like our house or somebody else's house. And they'd reciprocate and say, well, hey, you want to come on to Alcatraz? Well, sure, man. Well, you want to come over. You don't want to ride the big boat because that thing doesn't bounce. Ride the little boat. The little boat was maybe a 50, 60 footer. But it bounced all over, especially if it was rough. And of course, that was the way to go, bounce around. And the crew, they'd have to get on those boats. I mean, they had to work a little harder. But no, we'd go over there and we'd spend the Saturday over there. That was usually when we would go.
What would you do? I said,
they'd play in the. They had a big yard there. You could play baseball, softball, and they had a bowling alley over there.
Just the guards and families could use.
Yeah.
Inmates didn't use any of that.
No, Alcatraz was the only prison where they never were overcrowded with prisoners. They would morally be overcrowded with guards because they had, one time I think it was, they had 3 guards for every prisoner. Wow. They were the worst of the worst. In other words, the guards' main principle with those convicts was to keep them alive because nobody liked them. I mean, generally, with people, you know, even if you're a bank robber or some other people like you, other bank robbers might like you, other thieves might like you. These guys, nobody liked them. That was one of the deals, try to keep alcohol in life. They didn't want to get killed.
Track opponent was over there.
Yeah, Machine Gun Kelly and well, there was quite a few of them, but they were all the worst of the worst. In other words, none of the prisoners and all the other prisoners liked them. Every place else they want to kill them, and so they figured to keep these guys.
So they were in solitaire, or kind of in their own cells.
They were in their own cells, yeah, and they were guarded like. Now I don't know for sure whether I saw alcohol. One of the kids they told me that was alcohol, but whoever it was, they had 3 guards with them. One walking in front of them, one behind them, and one right alongside. And they're.
Where'd you see him?
He was up on a catwalk going. I don't know where he was going, but they had catwalks that they took between different blocks. Like, well, he could have been going to get a haircut. He kind of got his throat cut when he went there. They give him a shave because the barber hated his guts, and the guards were right there. And before that guard could stop the guy, he had his throat half cut.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then that guarder had to go someplace else then. But even after the war, I delivered mail over there for the post office. And even then, the prisoners, they had that jailbreak. They had that jailbreak that time. And that jailbreak, they knew they couldn't escape.
How many broke out?
Oh, it was a real big strike like, and they isolated themselves. And they were after 2 guards. They killed them both, and that was all they wanted. There was 2 guards that were just plain lousy. I mean, even prisoners, you know, they got their deal. And these guards, I imagine too, because guards can be pretty ornery, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they got all this power. They treat the guys like dogs. Well, pretty soon they resent it. I mean, prisoners aren't, they're not violent. I mean, you go to these prisoners, they're respectable. I mean, one of the things I always got to keep at this. When I was in Ukiah, I used to go to the baseball games out at Talmadge. Talmadge was a mental hospital for the criminally insane. And man, I mean, the baseball every Saturday, not Saturday, Sundays, I go to the game, see, and my mother used to take me up there. Well, my mother wasn't that much into stuff. Neither was my brother, but I wanted to go to the game, so she dropped me off the game while she went to see my Aunt Mary, and my brother would play my cousin Tom. So I'd go and watch the game. Well, they have all the inmates are sitting over on one side there, and they're watching the game. But that's the main reason. This was their entertainment. They were watching the game, and then the other people that wanted to go to the game were on the other side. The inmates were on the first base side, and the general crowd was on the third base side, and then behind the plate was kind of the guards and this. Well, I used to root for the San Francisco team, especially when the mission team, they'd have a semi-pro team from San Francisco. And of course, the people up there would root for the Ukiah team, you know, except a lot of the inmates, they didn't want the Ukiah team to win because these were usually guards that were playing, you know, and they'd give them a bad time. And this was the chance they had to razz the establishment,
right.
See. Well, I was rooting for the mission team, and this guy up there in the stands, he hollers down, "Hey, you're right on. Finally found somebody that's okay." And so he says, "Come on up here and sit." Well, they had a rope down the side. And I didn't really pay much attention other than the guard told me, "Well, you can sit on this side of the rope, but don't sit on that side." Well, we were sitting on the other side of the rope, and we're there yakking away.
When you come to a good stopping spot.
All right, back to the story.
But
we're going to eat before.
okay, so I sit down on the side, and the 2 of us are just racking back and forth. He knows his baseball pretty good. Him and I are getting along great. So every week for about 4 weeks, I go up there. When the game is on, my mother used to come in again. She used to figure games 2.5 hours. Generally speaking, the game was over before that. There was an oak tree out in center field, and she could park reasonably close to that, and I'd meet her out there. I'd go on home or go back to the 3 man stand. cousin. This one game, he's going into extra innings. Well, I ain't about to leave an extra inning game. Of course, my mother knows that. And she comes up and she parks the car. And the game's still going. I guess he asked the senator or somewhere if he saw it. So she walks around the time to come to the stand to let me know that she's there. And she spots me up there. I say hi. And I'm sitting next to this guy in the pool. She was thinking, you know, well, that's the guy you told me about, you know, that the two of them get together, you know. So she, what was it? She was past this guard. She says, who's that guy up there? I mean, my son, she says, he's talking. He seems to be a pretty nice guy. And the two of them are yakking about the game. The guy said, well, he's in for murder. He's a criminal. But your son, he looks forward to seeing them all the time, and he's been real nice. He's been, you know, he's trusty. He says he just enjoys. He says that your son, he comes here, and the two of them are up there, and he says and they're hollering for the San Francisco team, and everybody's giving them a bad time, but they don't care. And I got out, you know, and I didn't know the guy was criminally insane or that. And the game was over, you know, and I say goodbye to the guy, and I go on down and I said, man, he says, we had a good game there, you know. The San Francisco team won, boy. And I said, we were having fun. And she says, does that guy ever give you a bad time? I said, no. I said, no problem with him at all. We have fun. And she said, he knows his baseball pretty good, you know. He knows a lot of players. And we argue back and forth. Oh, well, she didn't tell me right then. But when we went back to the city, she said, I guess she didn't want to scare me, you know, that I might have got uptight. When we got back to the city, she said, you know that guy you were sitting next to? I said, no. I said, yeah. I said, what about him? Oh, he's in there for murder. I said, oh, yeah, well, he doesn't bother me.
He knows his baseball.
No, I mean, she was shook in a way, but then she finally realized, well, there was a bunch of guards around, so I was all right. And I was having fun. I wasn't, you know, the guy had never given me a bad time.
American music, and they knew who the number one on the hit parade. What's the matter there?
Turn it off if you want to stop.
Oh.
Where's he going?
Keep talking. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, well, okay.
What's this thing?
No, that's, that's my class, I think, of 39. That's junior high school. Now these, when we had a, what you call it, a class reunion, these are most of them in here, the ones that went to class reunion. There are a few that aren't there that were there. And about half of them, these are dead, or were dead. That was 10 years ago, or 12 years ago. But I imagine more of it now. I don't know.
So y'all wore uniforms? The girls wore uniforms?
No. That was for pictures.
Oh, pictures.
They just want us to take pictures. So you were supposed to look halfway respectful.
Well, they look like they got the kind of same outfit on.
Well, girls were all supposed to wear dark-colored skirts and a white blouse. That was the uniform of the day.
And be careful, these are old.
Yeah,
You see these?
these are all over 50 years old.
These are pictures of people that got caught in the volcano.
Yeah. You've heard of Mount Vesuvius blowing up Pompeii? Yeah, well, that's where this was taken. It shows the wrecks they had and the whole bit. They were digging that out there, and when we went into Naples, Vesuvius had erupted, and you had to use radar to get in there. And the kids, you get in, they were selling you little vials. They had these little vials selling you with volcanic ash.
All right.
And a lot of the Sicilians were digging up the ash and trying to get it away from where it was, because it was starting to fill in what they'd already dug up.
So, you said you had to go in by radar?
The train, yeah, the ships to go into the harbor. That's why we went to Pozzuoli. And why only the, what is it, the small, good harbor, but it was better than Naples.
What'd you find?
Got more pictures.
Oh boy.
Well, when you
piece of bark off the end.
This is Dad's letter to
What's that, a letter I wrote?
Well, when you guys repaired a ship, is that what you were?
Repair ship,
You
yeah.
repair other damaged
Well, see
ships?
what it was, all the landing craft, all the LST, the landing craft, LCIs and all those, they were originally not built for strength. They were built for one trip. Okay, the trip across the Atlantic for those was rough on some of them. And they'd come in and they'd check them out. Well, it was surprisingly how well they were stayed together. They're
Now
still
you're talking about the ships that opened up the front,
Yeah, yeah.
got close to shore and opened
Yeah,
up.
they were big. They carried tanks, LST, landing ships tanks. They would carry tanks and trucks and the whole bit. And they were good size. They only had about, I think it was 6-foot draft on the front, and I think it was something like 10 foot on the rear. And they were just a big barn. And, but they were making them like crazy. I mean, this LST-1, that's the one I used to get a kick out because that was turned over to the Limeys. The British sailors came to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and picked up the LST-1 and sailed it down to Ohio and Mississippi and New Orleans and then over to Africa.
Okay.
Well, when they made the trip, then the mechanics and machinist mates and all that on these ships would keep a record as to where problems were. Now, most of the problems weren't big problems, but they were still problems. So the repair gang, they checked all these ships out. And some of them had had major things like the doors wouldn't open right, or there was all sorts of things that could go wrong with them, but surprisingly, they did pretty good.
Did you pull alongside of them?
They pulled alongside us. We didn't pull alongside, they came to us. And then we had a repair dispatch boat that would go out. If they didn't have something major, well then, like, fire control equipment or something like that, or gunnery mates, they could go over and repair it there. They had the equipment, and they'd fix them up. And then, of course, after they made an invasion, well then they got banged up and they moved screws and things like that. And they'd come back and check them out and try to keep them, because it's surprising really how many of those LSTs and they're still using those things all over the world because they're ideal for carrying cargo and ships and going into the beach. And if they work them right, and they don't always do, if they work them right, you can keep them. They have an anchor on the fantail or rear, and when they go in, I'm not sure how long that cable is, something like 100 feet. When they're about 100 feet, or say 150 feet from the shore, they put it in, they're supposed to put it full speed ahead to run up on the beach as far as they can and drop the anchor at the same time.
And then winch back off?
Yeah, and winch back off. Now, some of the skippers were worried, and this is where you run into the problem. A lot of the skippers were worried about losing their ship. Well, they weren't supposed to worry about losing their ship. If they lost their ship, tough. Go in with the invasion force. But they didn't want to do that, so what they do sometimes, they put the anchor down too quick, and they wouldn't get in far. And we lost a lot of soldiers that way, especially on the LCIs. Because on those LCIs, the guys would come in, and these guys would get off for the invasion, and they step into 6 foot of water, 8 foot of water, and they're running off these ramps, and the other soldiers coming on top of them, and they drown. And they lost a lot of guys on that. LCI, landing craft infantry.
So those are the ones.
Those are the ones that look like a submarine. They have a conning tower,
Yeah.
and they look like a submarine on top of the water.
And then at the front gate, and they run off.
No, they had ramps on the side. They shot the ramps. They had 2 ramps.
Oh.
One on each side. It shot out, and they could go 30 feet, something like that. And the idea was for that LCI, it was the same thing. They were supposed to drop their anchor, but they were supposed to go as far as they get. The ideal situation is everybody brace themselves, and they go full speed into the beach. Now, at times they could get stuck on the beach because they couldn't have, but that wasn't the deal. The idea was to get those troops in there, not worry about the ship. Because they had seagoing tugs. That was a seagoing tug job. Seagoing tugs. They could come in and they'd get the line and pull them off.
What are the ones that you see in the movies? The landing crafts, they go up on the beach and the front falls down.
Oh, those are LCMs. they're smaller. They're not big.
Yeah, they were
the
real
big
small.
ones, the LSTs, they open up like
Open
that.
front.
Or, whatever. They open up the front and it goes sideways, like opening big doors. The LCMs, they flop over. And those at Higgins boat is one like that too. And that's the same thing with those. They run them up on the beach. The idea is they got to get those troops on the beach. And once you get them on the beach, then worry about getting the ship off. That was later. And a lot of them maybe would take a couple weeks before they got them off the beach, because a lot of them, they couldn't get up. They went up, the skippers were ran them right up there. And then you had the seagoing tugs. See, that was one thing. The seagoing tugs, they just pull them off. Those tugs, man, they grab a hold of them, yank them out, and they'd be all right. And the tides, you had to play the tides too.
And so you would repair anything that you could?
Well, we repaired, we did, like, sometimes they lose the screw. The screw would get damaged, and we'd repair the screw. They take these hoists, these cranes, and pick up the rear end. You could do that with LCIs or LSD. Pick up the rear, and then they'd change it, or they'd send a diver down, and they'd use a big wrench, it's about 6 foot. They put it, unscrew the screw, and they put a new screw on. And then sometimes we repaired the screws. But generally speaking, if the guy came in and his screw was off, we'd replace it with another screw and then take the screw that came off.
That's where you get that term, you got a loose screw?
Yeah, well, that's one of my buddies got killed that way, that dumb skipper on the LST. He started the engine up before he was finished.
Really?
Yeah, well, he went down and he was taking his equipment around with him, And he had a helmet on, a big diver's helmet. And he was unscrewing. Well, he puts the wrench on the nut, and then he signals with a rope signal to the guy on the hoist to yank it up. So he yanks it up, and that tightens it. All right. Then when it goes back, they pull it up, and they get another one. They put it down, and they reverse the deal. They tighten it up, and when they get it tightened up, the guy signals that he's got it done, but he has to gather his equipment. I mean, he's got all sorts of stuff. They're all tied to him so that they're not going to go, lose them. And this guy signaled that he was finished, and right away, the guy hollers at the skipper of the LST, "You're all set." But they didn't tell him to hold it until the guy gets up. And I'm not sure whether it's the skipper's fault. They say I heard that they court-martialed him, but I don't know whether it's his fault or the crew's fault for telling him that he was ready. Well, when he started the engine, and he's still down there, the screw hit him on the head. And the helmet helped him. It was kind of goofy in a way, too. It knocked him down, and the helmet kind of held him, and they pulled him up, because he wasn't that deep. And they took him to the hospital, and the report I got now, they were kind of secretive about it, but the report I got was that he died of pneumonia. He didn't die of a concussion or anything. But that was, like a lot of things, scuttlebutt you get. But it could very be, because pneumonia does kill a lot of people there's something else. So he come up on the bridge, he's kind of a goof off in a way, but when he worked real hard, and when he goofed off real hard too. And he liked to come up on the bridge. Oh, I forget what the others are now. This is Africa. This is Asia. This is the European. Oh, the Pacific. And the Pacific one, and the good conduct, and there was another one. Because I've got them all here. The only one that's not here is my good conduct medal, which it's not nice not having my good conduct medal.
And what's that flag there?
Oh, this is the commission pennant. All the ship. This was the commission pennant of the USS Delta when we were being shot at over in Bizerti and Palermo, Sicily. It finally wore out, and it's supposed to be burned, but me not being very nice, I didn't burn it. I hung on to it. Brought it home, and now it's theoretically the statute of limitations for having me shot is gone, so I won't get shot for having it. That sounded like a good I did.
But I gave this to Paul. He was one had something to do with. He was supposed to take something to school about World War II. If you knew a World War II book, so I gave him this, and I gave him my V-mail. That V-mail over there. Is that V-mail around? And what was it that he told him something
Were you
about?
looking for the V-mail?
Yeah.
It was here.
Yeah. And then it's just a lot of little gizmos.
It's just one little sheet.
Oh, it's right here.
Yeah. This is a V-mail. It's very difficult to read, but they...
Hold it up one more time.
St. Francis Recreation.
So that's a real thing, it's not a copy.
Oh, no. Well, what you do is you write a letter on a regular 8 by 10 paper. That's this. Then they take a picture of it, and they put it on film, and they fly it back to the States. That way they don't have to send a bunch of mail back, see? And then all V-mail's letters were delivered free, so they didn't have to worry about paying for them or anything. And the mailman just delivered them to whoever was sent them to.
And what does V stand for? Why do they call it V-mail?
Victory! On to victory! Victory mail. In other words, we were saving paper. The idea was to get people used to saving things.
Aren't they cool?
Oh, you got these articles in here for wow. The what I made.
Get it back a little ways.
So what is this? Rum and something.
This says application for a date with a sailor.
Yeah.
And who is Mary Miles?
Miller.
Miller.
She was a gal that I met in Washington, D.C.
Age 20, hips 34,
Yeah.
bust 34, 24.
That's why I asked him, how do you do that?
She
Married, no.
Look at all the questions on it, though. That's what's funny.
Can you cook? Do you smoke? Favorite brand? It's not, you know, that's an answer, it's going to be a yes. Do you raise cane? Did you make this yourself? Or
No, one of the guys made it. We sent them out. We put them in the mail. They never
Some of
got
this
sent.
down here is your father.
Does your father have a shotgun? Is he a good shot? Some of them are worth risking a chance for.
Yeah.
In the daytime, at night?
Yeah.
Have you a sister or brother? Quantity, size? Is he a boxer?
What you got?
Wrestler, invalid?
Yeah. No, there's somebody, they got this going. It was kind of fun.
Do not write below this line.
Yeah.
Approved, disapproved. That's great.
Did you want to,
I forgot
do you want
about
to
it.
discuss the flag or not?
We did, I did the flag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we did the victory mail.
Okay, I guess that's it.
Anything in there else? How about those photos?
These are really cool.
Yeah, oh, fruit,
You got these in Pompeii? When did you get these in Pompeii?
Well, I was in Pompeii.
When was that?
1944, around May, I guess.
Here's
April, May,
Vesuvia.
somewhere there.
What ship were you on?
The USS Delta,
USS Delta, huh?
repair ship.
You do the whole Mediterranean thing?
Well, not necessarily. We were in Oran and Bizerti, Palermo, Naples.
What's that, the Black Sea, Iran?
No, Oran, O-R-A-N,
Oran.
a town. It's in Morocco.
Morocco.
Yeah, and
So that's on the west coast of Africa?
no, it's on the north coast of Africa.
North
You
coast.
go through the Straits of Gibraltar, and it's the first really big city after you get through the Straits of Gibraltar. Maybe it's about 100 miles from the Straits. And
Had a good port.
yeah, they had a good fort. They had a pretty good deal. They had this, it was a palace that was up on top of the hill. That was a Arab palace or French palace, something like that. And the French had it, and when it comes to surrendering, the French wouldn't surrender to the British. They only going to surrender to the Americans. The British didn't like it because the senior officer of the Americans was only lieutenant commander or something like that. And they wanted to surrender to an admiral or a general or somebody. So every time the British would stay up there, they'd start shooting. And so when the Americans came up, they wouldn't shoot because they wanted to surrender. They just didn't want to surrender to the British, that's all. Because you couldn't tell whether a Frenchman was for you or against you, because they had the Vichy French and the Free French. And
The Vichy French were German, for the Germans?
for the Germans, yeah.
And so is that what also took over Casablanca?
Yeah, that was, Casablanca had a lot of, that was at the end of the line. Now, where they had problem in Casablanca, they had this big French battleship. And theoretically, that French battleship surrendered. But somehow or other, the Vichy French got a hold of it, and they put that thing in reverse and shot it back into the beach and trained their guns. I think they were 14 or 16-inch guns that were shooting at the invasion fleet as they came in. And the Massachusetts finally knocked it out. And the Massachusetts shot every cotton picket shell they had. They didn't have any but 50 caliber machine gun fire to go back. If a submarine had got, they wouldn't have been able to shoot the submarine. Oh, they shot everything. Of course, they were fast enough, and the chance of a submarine getting them wasn't that great. We were lucky, like at that time, the wolf pack was fairly heavy, and then there was a lull. Something happened, and there were very few. When we went over there, it was a little later. It was in January. We went to the Straits of Gibraltar with an American escort. And then when we couldn't, our warships weren't allowed, American warships weren't allowed in the Mediterranean because of a peace treaty. The British ships weren't supposed to go in the Caribbean, so British ships took over escorting us, which caused a little confusion. And we don't know for sure, but we think there was a sub there that showed up. Somebody, they claimed they saw it. And the British and the Americans dropped all sorts of depth charges on it. They did see an oil slick, but as far as getting it, they don't know where they got it or not. But anyway, it was interesting. Here you're at war, and you got the war of veterans, so they mess around with protocol as to who's going to escort who into the Mediterranean. It's a dumb deal.
What fleet were you with?
No, we just were the convoy.
Just for the convoy.
We had the battleship Texas, I think it was the battleship that was our escort, biggest one. Then a bunch of destroyers, I forget. And we were on Coffee Corner, which is number 13. They would number them across from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 13 is Coffee Corner because when the subs attacked convoys, they used to go for the corners. And we didn't have any problem.
What kind of ship was the Delta?
It was a repair ship.
Repair ship.
It was a converted cargo ship. It started out, it was the Savoy Packer, and it was Madsen Line's ship. And when the war came along, and the Navy basically took it over, and they used it for taking cargo to Iceland. The skipper they had on it was the one that we had. He was an ex-submarine skipper. They made him captain of this ship. He was only lieutenant commander, but he was captain of this ship. And
he had a bad habit of yelling, die, die.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It was that he knew how submarines operated. He was a guy that he graduated from Annapolis in 1918, all raring to go in the submarine service, and he's all set. The war ends, so he's ruined. So he stayed in the submarine service right up until, well, just after the British, well, I guess 1939. He couldn't pass the physical. So they decided to make him a captain of a ship. Well, theoretically, he should have been a full four-striper, but they didn't do it because they didn't promote him, especially in the submarine service.
What's four-striper?
Well, a captain has 4 stripes. Commander has 3 stripes. A lieutenant commander has 2.5 stripes on their sleeve. And then the ones that get the egg beaters or that on their caps, they have the thick stripe for an admiral, and you got what is it, rear admiral, vice admiral, full admiral. They got all sorts of, I forget them all. But anyway, he had more points than most captains. And he should have been, and he was upset because he wasn't. But then again, he was in the submarine service. Mm-hmm. He finally made captain. He made captain in Missouri. And then he wasn't transferred. We got to Palermo, that's when he left. But no, he was a goofball captain, but he was, you know, if you saw that movie, King Newton,
Yeah.
he was like the King captain, except he wasn't a coward. I mean, there was no way he was a coward. He had a pair of 45 pistols, 38, there was a 38 pistol on a 45 frame. He had 2 of them. I mean, boy, Pearl handled the whole bit. And he had a bunch of other guns, and he used to put them on top of the blower on the bridge that took the air down to the engine rooms. And he had them on both sides, forward and aft. And he would get these guns, and he'd start shooting with them. Well, we had when we were in, what the heck, we started out, we had a bet, a bunch of us on our ship, and a Biscayne. Biscayne was a Coast Guard ship. Who was going to shoot the first German gun? And so in Brazurti, we had an air raid, and our 1.1s were shooting pretty good, and the Biscayne was shooting. They were farther over than us.
1.1, what is that?
Well, that's
like anti-aircraft gun?
Yeah, an anti-aircraft gun.
So the kinds that go like this?
Yeah. So here comes this German plane in off the port, port side, well, not off the bow, but little port side. And he's coming in, and our captain's out there with his 45, or 38. Oh, and the 1.1s are shooting him, and they got him. And he says, I got him. So he writes the time down and call up the Biscayne. We got ours, and the Biscayne was they just shot theirs down. We beat it by about 20 minutes, something like for 51 down. But it was comical on the way he did that. He'd run from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge. The governor got himself shot one time because he liked to smoke his pipe. He started lighting a pipe. What was it? Philadelphia was in there. Some Marine on the Philadelphia Garden took a shot at him because there's supposed to be blackout conditions. When he looked at that old wooden match, lights up his pipe and blare it out. No, it was kind of it was goofy on something. But basically speaking, it wasn't. I'd like to see Missouri again. I mean, that whole harbor was just a mess. I mean, it had most of the invasion fleet for Sicily there, and oil slicks and everything. Today it's a great resort, the whole bit, and the people go to France, Italy, Sicily, Greece. That's one of their favorite places to go. Good fish to eat, the whole bit. That's why I like to go there. It'd be interesting. No, but here we have Pompeii, and then there's, what's this? Oh, that's, well, Naples, yeah, Naples. Yeah, we were in Naples, and that's one of the things they don't print in the papers or anything. Naples, the British hospital ship, we had a hospital ship over there near Naples. We were in Pozzuoli, actually, to start with, which is just north of Naples. And American hospital ships, we used to tell ships where to anchor. And the American hospital ships, they wouldn't anchor anywhere near the British hospital ships. Because there were rumors that the British hospital ship had carried Winston Churchill on it. So he was fair game that we shoot them. Well, we had a rumor going around that was pretty good. You know what the largest gun in the Navy was? 16-inch gun. And I mean, wait a minute, no, I think it was more than that. It was 18-inch gun. And the Missouri only carries a 16-inch.
Now, when they get that big, is that the 16? It's not the barrel size?
That's the
shell size?
Shell. And 18-inch gun, biggest gun in the Navy, you know. And of course, this was a joke. Everybody was, where's the biggest gun over there? It's on a hospital ship. And boy, I mean, they made all sorts of, they got on that propaganda deal to tell the German, now this 18-inch gun, it doesn't work. What it is, it's the ballast on the hospital ship Hope. They took it and they loaded it with cement down in the along the keel, so that because the hospital ship is top heavy, they don't have any weight on them. And they needed the weight, so they took that, because an 18-inch gun is just too big. See, one of the problems you have when you shoot big caliber is the recoil. And the Navy can always shoot bigger shells than the Army can because you can use the water as your recoil. See, when you shoot, you wait till you're down, and then you shoot, and it throws you up like that. But that water breaks, it acts as a recoil.
Did you actually feel the ship move back?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, you don't really notice it so much because you know you're not going to shoot until you sit down. If a guy shot when he was this way, the thing liable to turn over. But they don't. You don't shoot that way. They have it timed. I mean, it's not too hard to do. I mean, the ship's going back and forth. But or even if it's just going in calm water, well, then you still got plenty of. But no, that was one of those things. But I was wondering, I don't have anything, I don't think, in Missouri.
Were you at any of the Normandy landings? Or?
No, Normandy, I was in, where the heck was I? I was in Palermo when they hit the Normandy beach. And that's when Sally and Eddie get on the horn, and the skipper didn't want us to listen to it because the best music we got was from the German radio. That we weren't supposed to listen to the German propaganda, so you put headphones on so the captain didn't know you were listening to them. But one of the things when that landing happened, they were talking about, this landing won't make it. There's no way this landing could. It's led by the same man that led the invasion of the Dardanelles, which failed in World War I. The same guy, Winston Churchill. And the way they said Winston Churchill was like, I mean, it was Sally that would say it, and she could make that song.
What was her name?
Sally and Eddie. There were two. They were the, what do you call them?
Sort of like
disc jockeys.
Sort of like Tokyo Rose.
Yeah, like Tokyo Rose. Yeah. And but they had the best music. They had the latest songs from the States. Oh, the song I was going to think of that Paper Doll. I thought Paper Doll was a Italian or maybe a German song. Because we heard it in Italian and we heard it in German. And then finally I found out, hey, that's an American song, which was kind of...
So they must have had somebody in the States.
Oh yeah, no, they were taping.
You want to know one of the reasons you're here today, don't you?
The long reason.
It's a long story, but not too bad. I met your mother in Ukiah, which was kind of a goofball setup. I was having a lot of fun with horses, and I was working at Masonite at the time. And this guy at Masonite, like everybody else, is trying to fix me up with somebody. So he keeps telling me that, oh man, he met the gal that's just for me. And I said, you got rocks in your head. So he says, well, he says, I get her go out there. And he kept after me for about a week. And I says, oh, all right, I'll see, but I want to see what she looks like first. So we went to the telephone company where she was working. That's your mother's.
You got a half hour?
And in order to see, I had to climb up on the side to look through the window and saw her at the ward. So I figured, well, that's not too bad. So I got back to the, where was it, Hodges, I guess, the restaurant, and oh no, it was an ice cream joint. And I called Louise up. And she answered the, well, of course, there were only two operators. So anyway, we started yakking a little bit, and your grandmother wasn't too sure of me, so she says, why don't you bring me a hamburger? So I says, okay, so I went and got a hamburger and brought it over, and evidently she didn't think I was too horrible. I thought she was pretty neat. So I got back on the phone.
I wanted to look at him before I decided to go out with him. And so when he opened up the door and I had to look up,
she grabbed the hamburger and ran.
And thanks a lot, I'll talk to you on the phone later.
So I got to her on the phone, tried to find out a little information about it. Found out that she was from Pennsylvania. And she came all the way to Pennsylvania within 50 miles of the beautiful redwood trees. So I says, hey, you can't go back to Pennsylvania. She was supposed to go back in about 3 months. you can't go back to Pennsylvania without seeing the redwood trees. Why don't we go up and see the redwood trees? You're off in the daytime and I'm off. She had the night shifts all the time, and I had what goofball shifts. 1 week I worked days, 1 nights, 1 midnight graveyard, and all 3 shifts in 1 week. But this week I was off in the daytime. So she says, okay, so I went and picked her up and we took off for the redwoods. And we stopped at a museum on the way and then went up into the redwoods. And she got out of the car, and she didn't just get out of the car. She gets out of the car, where's the river? And she takes off for the river. Well, I have to lock up the doors, you know. So I lock up the doors, and I look around, and there she is, wiggling through the redwood trees. Lights went on. That's the gal for me. So around there at the Russian River, and it was Richardson's Grove. They had a log that was split in half, and they used for a dance floor, and this type of stuff. Oh, we fooled around there for a while. I forget what the heck. We were walking here, there, and anywhere. And then on the way back to Ukiah, I had this car, and I had a station wagon, and the station wagon was a real smooth station wagon. The right window wouldn't go up very easy. You had to get on both sides and pull it up and get it up there. But the vibration, it would go down. Well, naturally, it gets cold, and I wasn't about to worry about that. So your grandmother, she has to come over to my side of the drive. It was a bench seat. See, it wasn't a, what do you call it, bucket seats like they got today. So she was stuck by sitting close to me. And then we did put her up a little bit, but not too much. So I started yakking away, telling her my life history, and she was getting like, well, she's thinking, you know, what are you telling my life history?
What in the world is, I want to know all these details, all the stuff he's doing.
And then I told her that she was the gal I was going to marry, and yeah, that went over big. And
So
she didn't really say no.
I'm not
Right?
ready to get married.
Yeah, she's got to go back to Pennsylvania and all sorts of things. So anyway, we went out a few more times than that. And then I left Masonite to go down to San Francisco and go to work for Armour. And used to drive back and forth up to Ukiah. It's about 120 miles. And then it took 3 hours to drive it. If you really meant it, speed it up, you could make it in 2.5. Today it's about a 2-hour drive. But then I invited her to come on down to San Francisco. You hadn't seen San Francisco. She'd gone through San Francisco, but she hadn't seen San Francisco. She had a weekend off. And I told her she could spend the night with my brother and Maggie. And she decided to come on down. So she figured, I guess, well, I could at least see San Francisco. And I'm working on her all the time when we're going to get married. It took me about 3 weeks to convince her, I guess. And then finally setting things up. And that's about the size of it. I mean, we got married.
Within 3 months after he asked me we were married. We're waiting to see if this is going to last.
Yeah.
And how long have you been married now?
48 years.
48 years.
And we decided, well, we'd get a place to stay. We finally found a place out in the Castro District on the 3rd floor in the attic. I had paid off all my debts, so she wouldn't marry me though until I got a new car. She didn't like my station wagon because it grew mushrooms on the back of it. So I bought a new car. And
I was embarrassed.
And then we went to get a wedding ring and an engagement ring set up. And that was our only debt. We didn't have any money, but we had to cash in your mother's war bonds so that we could get by the first week.
You married me for my money.
Yeah, I married her for her money. And we cashed in her war bonds. That got us through the first week because you have to pay extra to get an apartment. And I was still working at Armour, so that worked out pretty good.
I think that's all he wanted.
Then what was it? Then Louise, she wanted to go back to Pennsylvania to get married. see her folks and get married. Well, I wasn't about to do that because if folks see me, they wouldn't want me to marry her. So I thought we'll get married here, and 9 months later we'll go back to Pennsylvania. So 9 months later we went back to Pennsylvania, and that's the first time I saw my in-laws. And we were very fortunate to get good in-laws.
And then we took Mom and Dad to Niagara Falls, which was our honeymoon.
Yeah, we went down to Niagara Falls on our honeymoon
Mom and Dad.
with his father and mother. It was a nice trip. And her cousin Jim, or not Jim, Skip. Skip was a test pilot for Bell Aircraft, and he knew the ins and outs of getting over there, which was neat. And I was going to go to work back there. I mean, we didn't have that much. We put it all in the garage. We left the apartment we had and put everything we had in the garage at folks, which was about a car full of junk. And if we'd have got a job back there, I was thinking, well, I'll go to work back there. So I went up to Bell Aircraft in Buffalo, and this guy that was standing behind me told me what a great place Buffalo was. It was the #2 target. If we have a war, they'll drop bombs on us. And after they drop bombs on the #1s, he was happy to be at #2. So that turned me off.
Hang it up.
Okay, well, we've been married for 48 years now in a few days. So that ought to take care of that.
I want to start running and you can just start talking whenever. Okay, you can go.
Willie Mays' catch was something else, and it was quite a deal. I was working at Armour's at the time, and we're expecting, and it turns out we were expecting Laurie. But before Laurie was born, the Giants were in the World Series with Cleveland. Cleveland was an odds-on super favorite. They'd won more games than any other team in the American League. They just blew out the Yankees, who had been winning all the time. And the Giants came in there and they were just so much fodder for it. Well, in the first, I think it was the first inning, old Wirtz, Vic Wirtz for Cleveland, one of their real sluggers, hit a ball in Polo Grounds. Never again, never before was a ball hit so far and still was just an out. Vic Wirtz hit that ball to center field. Willie Mays turned around, had his back against the ball and started running. He seemed to know exactly where that ball was going to land, and he just ran like crazy. And just as the ball was coming around, Willie caught it. Almost 500 feet. There's no stadium in the country that has 500 feet, so that it would have been a home run anyplace else. And Willie turned around and the ball he just knew it was there and he caught it. And that just broke the heart of the Cleveland team. They ended up losing 4 straight games to the Giants. And after the 4th game, who was born but Laurie Ann?
Now, where were you when were you listening to this game on the radio?
On the radio, yeah. The game was on the radio, and on the news program they had the picture of it, so you could watch the news to see him making the catch. And it was fabulous.
So what game of the series was that?
First game.
Oh, that was the first game of the series?
Yeah.
Ah.
And Cleveland was never the same. Cleveland had 4 pitchers. And I think all 4 of them, the 4 main pitchers, all won 20 games. Bob Feller, Bob Feller wasn't even the best pitcher on the team at that time because they had Garcia and I forget the others. But they had they had a terrific team. It was something else. And the Giants just took them down. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
So Sal Megley was a pitcher for the Giants.
When I was born, which game?
First game, but you were born when the series was over.
Oh, okay.
You were born on October the 3rd. That's when the thing was over. The Giants had taken them, And I went to the hospital that night. We had to knock a cop out of the way to get there, but we got you there in time to be in the hospital. Your mother wasn't in there very long before you were born. And,
so I was polite enough to let you finish watching the World Series?
Well,
or listening
the
to
game was over. I came home from work, and then your mother started feeling pain, so we decided we'd take and go up to San Francisco, which was, say, with Mom and Pop, which was only about a half a mile from the hospital. So we went up there, and then in not the middle of the night, but to start out in the evening after I was asleep, you came in and said, let's go. And so we went, and there was a cop that was going ahead there. He evidently escorting somebody else, but I got behind him and followed him. When we got to the hospital, he looks around and he says, you're not the guy that I'm bringing. They just haven't got here yet. So and he just kind of stood in the way, and I wanted to get a wheelchair for your mother. So we got the wheelchair, and they looked at her, and they just rushed her right into the delivery room, and you were born. And so you were born on the 3rd, in the evening, around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. I forget the exact time. But anyway, and the gal that the cop was escorting, she was in the same room as your mother, but she was, about 8 hours later that her baby was born. But that was, and Laurie ever since, he's been the Giants. The Giants have not won a World Series since 1954. They've been close, but they haven't won one. And I am hoping that this year, with a little luck, and they need a lot of it, they've had it so far, that they're able to at least get into the World Series, and, well, to win it. I mean, that would be fantastic, too. But then again, then I can roll over in my grave because the Giants have gone a long time. I have suffered with them for quite some time. And Willie Mays, it's funny because Willie Mays, I followed him for some reason. They were talking about playing. Jackie Robinson had broken in, and a bunch of players had broken into baseball, and Willie played for Minnesota, which was a International League team, or American Association League, I think it was. And he was a rookie. And in the year 1950, I guess it was 1950, he came up, but he went back to play. And then the Giants won the 1951 pennant. That was the year that Bobby Thompson hit that home, hit around the world. And the Giants lost to the Yankees in the World Series, and Willie got drafted into the Army. And he spent 1952 and 1953 in the Army, and the Giants didn't do nothing. But in 1954, Mays got out of the Army and started playing, and boy, they went to town. And they won that pennant going away, but they did not as much as Cleveland, but they won the pennant, and Willie was one of the biggest factors to it. And the crazy part about that is that Willie never got another World Series. That was the end of World Series play. So, well, it wasn't the end of World Series, but end of winning a World Series. There was that horrible World Series when Willie McCovey got a blow that if it had gone 6 inches higher would have been a hit, and they'd have won that one with the Yankees, but Willie didn't hit it that hard. That was another Willie. But no, Mays, I'd say, was the best outfitter I'd ever seen. I mean,
well, tell about the one we went to when I was like in 6th grade or something.
I took Laurie to a ball game. I used to take the kids to the game, and
So this was a game with the Dirty D's, the Dodgers, and we went out to Chavez Ravine to Dodger Stadium for the game. And of course it was a sellout, but as usual the Dodger fans all got there late, and as usual they left early. Well, the game went into extra innings, and the Dodger fans all left the game, but there was more Giant fans in there. We all got down around first base there, and boy, the game was close, and Willie made a catch there that was out of sight. Roseboro hit a line drive over, over second base, and Mays kept running and running and running, and he stretched out, grabbed that ball, and retired aside. And then the Giants came on and beat the Dirty D's that game. That was it. And Laurie stayed up the whole time. She was tired. I told her she had to get a nap before she would go because of school. And she stayed up the whole time rooting with them and hollering at the rest of us. And then when we got in the car going home, man, she was off to sleep. We drove back to Fullerton. But she didn't miss a bit of that game, and it was a great game. And it was Willie that basically saved the day because he caught a pass. I mean, he was running. He jumped out in the last minute, and he stretched as far as he could and caught the ball because of the ball that got by him, and that'd have been all she wrote. No, it's quite a deal. But I'd seen one thing is we'd seen a lot of good outfielders. Everybody thought that Joe DiMaggio was a great outfielder, and he was, but I think Mays was a better outfielder than Joe.
Okay, now go ahead and start talking.
Okay, Joe was a pill. He'd play in San Francisco and get us kids out there to chase the balls for him, and he told his brothers, and then they'd say, oh, when Joe gets through, we'll have a game. But we never did. He'd go home. He just wanted us to chase the balls for him. But his brother Dominic, he was all right because he'd have a game. Him and Dario Loaded Johnny, they'd pick up sides and choose it. One of the things he did, a bunch of us kids would be wanting to play, and they'd say, well, you get who's the worst players? And the two worst players, they're the ones that chose the team so that we'd play it. Dominic would pitch, and so would Darryl. They pitch. I was catching, and they would throw in hard for each other. But for us, they'd throw it like kind of judge our deal. But they were fun. But Joe, he was stuck up all the time. Part of it, he was kind of bashful. There's no doubt about that. But he was a pill, as far as I was concerned.
Was Daryl a DiMaggio also?
No, Daryl Loaded Johnny.
Oh.
The other brother, what's his name? Vince DiMaggio was the oldest brother, and he's the one that got started. Then Joe came. Joe played 3 years with the Seals before he was bought by the Yankees. And only $25,000 at that time for buying a player, and Joe was damaged goods when he went up there. He always did have problems with his heel. He had a spur on it. And then Dominic, he played for the Seals also, and everybody thought that Dominic was the only reason he was playing because he was Joe's brother. But Dominic proved real good and went on. But he's just a good guy. He died not too long ago. He was 90-some years old when he died. Of course, Joe's been dead longer than that. And then when Gabby Street became the manager of the Missions, man, he got rid of Grant real quickly. Gabby Street was a Ku Klux Klan member. And he hated the blacks with a passion. But anyway, that was 1935.
So where did you play? Where did you play baseball as a kid? With DiMaggio and your friend Funston
Playground.
Playground.
I'm not sure. It seemed to me someplace along the line they changed it to be Willie McConey Steel or something, but Funston is all the way I knew it, down by the bay.
Now, how did you hook up to root for the Giants, even though they weren't in San Francisco yet?
That's a good question. I don't really know. All I know is that the Giants, I kind of liked them. Carl Hubble, and then they were good, and then St. Louis, the Cardinals had Dizzy Dean in 34, they won. 33 is probably when I really got into baseball. And the Giants had played, they won the World Series, I think that year, against Washington. And it kind of run along, and it was like, why I was checking up on them, particularly because I had heard about Willie Mays playing for Minnesota. And he had a good batting average up there. And when he came up with the Giants, man, he couldn't get a hit for beans. And he was worried because he just couldn't hit. I think it was 13 times he didn't get a hit. And old Leo DeRoche, he thought he was good. He says, "You're my center fielder." And he said, "I don't care, you just keep going." And I guess it took the pressure off of him and figured, well, okay, and he just started to go for like mad after that. But it took him a while to get started because he played for the Giants, then he went back to Minnesota, and then he came back again. And I was kind of watching it in the paper. The papers then, like the Chronicle, they gave you good reports as to what was happening all over in baseball. They had the green section, had baseball over there, and all the leagues that played baseball, the kid leagues and everything else, we had, I don't know how many games, but they'd fill up the pages with the box scores of all the games that were played amateur. That was one of the big, they didn't even come close today, but because in the wintertime we had a lot of big league ball players that would play sandlot ball there in semi-pro. It's like, what is it? A good player would make about $5,000 or $6,000 a year, and they'd have to have a job in order to exist. They couldn't make enough money playing baseball to support their families. Old Joe Sprins, he was one of the best catchers that the Seals ever had. He played for the Missions. He used to work for the Department of Motor Vehicles in the off season. But they all get jobs. I mean, that was it. No, very few. They play Sunday ball sometimes, but they didn't make enough money to survive even then. And $200 a month was what they paid a lot of the players to play baseball, and it'd take about at least $100 a month to exist.
So what year did the Giants move to San Francisco, and how old were you?
1958. 1958, they came to San Francisco. That was a big deal that they left it. The Giants and the Dodgers in New York couldn't draw beans back there, and that's the reason that they left. They wanted to make some money, so they came west. And when that was the start of it. They made too much money in a way, but the players, I mean, it's like everything else. The owners wanted to have them play for nothing, and they're making nothing but money off of them. And the players finally got together, and today they've gone the other way. The players have make too much money for what they're doing.
Well, let me ask you this. Suppose the Giants had actually moved to Los Angeles and the Dodgers had moved to San Francisco. How would that have affected you?
I would have been, that would have been a horrible thing for you to even suggest. Brooklyn was all right. I mean, I didn't really, it was in 1936 that I got, so I didn't like Brooklyn. That's because...
And how old were you?
Oh, I was 11 years old. What you call Oscar Eckhart, well, Joe DiMaggio hit .398 in the Coast League. And old Oscar Eckhart from the Missions, he hit .399. So Joe never did lead the Coast League in hitting. And Oscar Eckhart led it several, he batted .400 several times in the Coast League. But he was older, and he went up to Brooklyn, and old Casey Stengel only played him about 3 or 4 games and didn't let him go. And DiMaggio, he just started, of course, there. He was playing with the Yankees in '36. And it just kind of got me that, and I never liked Brooklyn since then. And if they, I don't know what, maybe I'd have given up baseball. I doubt if I'd have given up baseball, but the Dodgers were just, and the Giants were playing, and I'd root for them. And anybody playing the Dodgers, I'd root for them.
So you were pretty ecstatic when they came to San Francisco then?
Yeah, well, Los Angeles deserved Brooklyn. San Francisco, the Giants were a team, and it was that way in New York too. I mean, New York and the Giants and Brooklyn had that rivalry there too, and it was a fierce rivalry. They went for years when nobody played for the Giants and for the Brooklyn on a trade. They wouldn't even talk to each other half the time. But then O'Malley, he got was stolen. They weren't, neither one of them were making any money. The New York fans, I mean, they were pretty much what do you call it? Fair weather fans. When the team's doing good, they would go out, but if the team wasn't doing good, they wouldn't. Actually, the best fans in the country are the Chicago Cub fans. They go to games regardless. Team's losing, they're in last place. The most valuable player one year was Ernie Banks, and the Cubs only finished last. And he still got the most valuable player. No, the Cubs are something else. But most of them are fair weather, and today, I mean, they don't draw that good in other areas. I will say this, the Dodgers and the Giants, the Dodgers do draw good. The Giants are now drawing good. And I'm not sure whether it's fair weather for that stadium they built there kind of helped, but for plain fans, those Cubs, they're something.